This week, we subvert the entire superhero genre.
And I try to resist the urge to go, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett, and we watch anime.
Garrett, this week we are going to be doing, as well as future weeks, we're going to be trying to touch upon very popular anime that's kind of touching on the cultural zeitgeist. I've been giving you a lot of, behind-the-scenes stuff that you might want to watch, but I'm going to kind of touch a little bit more on more popular titles, ones that have touched the cultural zeitgeist. And there was no more popular anime in the 2014-2015 region than the one that we watched today, which was a surprise for me because I remember reading it and thinking, this is too weird, too quirky for a Western audience, but boy, was I wrong. This week, we are going to be talking about the great anime One Punch Man. So, Garrett, give us a 1 to 2 sentence explainer of what we're about to watch today.
Sometimes you can judge a book by its cover or its title, because one punch kills everybody.
That's correct. It is basically like, we're telling you the whole show in the title, and there you go. That's enough for you guys.
Well, that was our episode this week, so thanks for listening to Weeb Noob Watch Anime.
We really one-punched that opener. So, basically, this anime is really quite quirky for many reasons. The first is its origin story, much like a good superhero comic, is that it actually started as a non-published, independent artists webtoon. So right now in the United States, we're kind of getting a flush with these what are known as webtoons from countries like China and Korea. They're trying to open up the world to other Asian markets for kind of anime. But this was a Japanese artist that gave us this title back in 2009, and the guy's name is One, which I love because I love anime artists who use really weird names. Like Air Gear has his artist is called Oh Great. But it actually got a full credit in 2012 and was officially published in 2012. And then it didn't become a full anime until 2015. So this show, One Punch Man, I really like, but I want to hear your thoughts, Garrett. What was your experience so far with this show?
So before, what are we on, week 12, week 13?
Yeah, I forget how many episodes we have. We're about 3 months in, if I do my math.
6 months ago, you were saying to me, before you even brought up the idea of the podcast, you were saying, Garrett, there's a anime that I really think you'd like, and I think you should turn on Netflix and check it out. It's One Punch Man. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But I never, took the time. I was a fool. I was a damn fool. The show is absolutely terrific. I mean, it is you and I have not gotten into on this podcast sort of the powering up anime of Naruto and other things. But there's plenty of that here. There's also plenty of wit. There's humor. There's excellent thought put behind things and creativity. The characters are not in high school, which is
Yay! We're out of high school finally! In our mid-30s, we finally left high school, Garrett. Isn't that exciting?
That is tick number 1 off the list. But yeah, it was endlessly entertaining, and I wish I'd watched it 6 months ago. And now I'm 6 episodes in, and I am absolutely gonna blow through another half dozen in the next week just to go along for the ride. How long is this show?
I think it's right now in season 2. It's a little slower moving than a lot of other shonen animes.
Is it a Netflix show?
It is a Netflix show, but much like anything else, Netflix just bought a property from Funimation, and Funimation is the main producer does it. So if it gets on Funimation, it's generally generally considered a top property, and you can tell by how its art was done, how it was treated with the music, the kind of artist that it got out of it. So this show is very interesting for a lot of reasons, and its origin story is really interesting. The other thing that I think is the central thesis of the show, which I think is really awesome and which I think you picked up on, is that it's good because it completely subverts several genres at once while being simultaneously a good example of that genre. So, for example,
it both pokes fun at, and it is a good example.
Right. So, for example, the superhero genre, right? Like, what are some big quirks of the superhero genre? Is like much like Superman, the guy's ultra powerful, but also Justice Lid. It's very one-dimensional, and they subvert that by making the main character kind of a dunce, but also just really powerful, and making the idea of being super powerful really boring. Right. But it's still a good superhero manga. Such the case, it's also a really good Sentai show. Like, because if you watch things like Power Rangers, we see it very how an American audience up, and in Japan, those like villains where they come from, like I'm a pig that rolled in the radioactive mud, and now I'm radioactive pig man. Like that's the kind of style, and so they made fun of that in this show with all the different characters, and most of the time it's like I ate too much crabs and I'm a crab monster. In my boxer briefs, whatever the hell he was wearing, and that subverts, but it's also a really good Sentai show. Finally, shonen anime, the idea of constantly powering up, like you were saying, we're going to be doing a lot of shonen over this time, but the One Pieces, the Narutos, the Bleaches, it does have a problem with how high you can get with how powerful someone gets, and at some point the person becomes planet destroying just by being, and then like it's less fun to watch. So but it's still a really good shonen anime. So
for the folks at home, One Punch Man circles around this character named Saitama, and when we're first introduced to him, he just seems like he's a dude in his late teens, early 20s, walking down the street, and or at least when we're first introduced to his backstory, this is what we see. You know, handsome looking dude, whatever, and he comes across a monster in the street that happens to look like a giant crab.
With tidy whities on, so he's got like the opposite of a mermaid. You know, like
he's an inverted crab mermaid.
Like instead of having like the bottom of a fish and the top of like a hot woman, it's like a crab man with the bottom of a dude with nice who didn't miss leg day. Like that's what it is.
Right. So this crab man is a monster. He's walking down the street, and he's looking for a kid. And he goes, have you seen a kid with a big chin? Which, by the way, when he actually finds the kid has 2 massive testicles for a chin, and it's freaking hilarious.
It's hysterical. And the guy, because like even Saitama was like, this kid is not cute at all. Like he's like considering actually saving the kid because he's like, this kid's just not cute.
So the monster sees Saitama, and he's like, man, you're such a loser. And Saitama was like, oh, I just left a job interview and I didn't get the job, and life is crap right now. And this monster's like, you are too pitiful for me to kill. So carry on with your life, because that will be worse than me attacking you. And go. So eventually the crab guy, Saitama, walks by a playground, and he sees a kid that is unmistakably the kid with a big chin. As we mentioned, and he's like, oh, I should really mind my own business, but you know what? He's just an innocent kid, even though he's ugly as sin. And he's like, kid, you gotta get out of here. And the kid's like, but my ball. He's like, no, like, I get it. You gotta go. He's like, but my ball. Kid is clearly a moron. And then the monster shows up and steps on the ball, and he basically is like, Saitama, I'm going to kill this kid unless you get out of the way.
Why did he want to kill the kid? This is a really important point. Do you remember why?
Didn't he make fun of him?
Well, he did something very more than make fun of the guy.
What did he do?
He drew nipples onto the crab with permanent marker.
On his crab shell.
Yeah. Which is just like, when you think about what this show set up just from that one scene of like, the villains are going to be ridiculous. Their motives are stupid. There's no reason why they should exist, but they're just cantankerous all the same. And I just love that. And this character Crablante, and they kind of repeat that kind of character over and over again. And it's always funny, the new person that comes out of it. But yeah, continue what happens with Crablante.
So Saitama ultimately is like, you know what, I'm going to defend this kid. And he ends up in a battle with this monster. And at first he appears to be incredibly outmatched, but Saitama's pretty strong, and he's pretty quick, and at the very end, he ends up leaping over the crab and grabbing his eyeball.
This crab extended eyeball.
And he pulls it out, but it doesn't just pull out his eyeball. It basically pulls out all of the innards that are attached to the eyeball.
It's just like this eyeball's connected to every, like the head bone's connected to the shoulders. It's like the eyeball's connected to the
intestine.
And it's like it pulls it out. Ah! Like this giant magician's trick where they pull in the sheet out of his mouth, but like out of the eye socket. It's insane.
So he beats Crablante.
Crablante's no more.
And at that moment, he decides that he is going to dedicate himself to being a superhero.
Yeah.
So we fast forward 3 years, and we see that this is clearly in some sort of Japan, but instead of giving all the cities names, all the cities have letters.
Yeah.
City A, B, C, Z, so on and so forth. And apparently, the whole country of Japan is being run amok with monsters.
It's just all the time. This is why it's like Power Rangers. Like, if you watch Power Rangers, you're like, wow, that was really cool. But I guarantee you, just in that 20-second fight, 20,000 people died easily.
Right. And like $15 billion worth of damage.
Like, so many people died doing that. So it's a very realistic
giant monsters walking through town that are just taking out city blocks. And
it's like you can tell that, like, that part's not really thought of in the Sentai genre or like the Godzilla style kaiju genre. And but they make it like what it would really be like to have these kind of random mutants walking through your town. So I thought that was really funny as well. But Saitama is interesting because he loses his hair, he said, because of his training. So now he's fully bald.
Well, that's how hard he trained Kyle, is that his hair just fell right out.
He lost his hair by training his ass off. So that means if all you guys want to stay frumpy, at least you'll have a nice full head of hair. So in this show, what I thought was cool is that you see automatically that Saitama is so powerful now at this point that he becomes bored with the idea of being a superhero. Like, he doesn't get the thrill. Like, he had a dream in which he fought all these mole men in, like, the middle of the city, and just, like, the thrill of being able to find someone who was a match for him. But then, like, everyone he fights, he beats with that, like, whoop-ah!
Right, and so he wakes up from that dream, and he hops down, and there's actual mole men, and they see him punch the first mole man, and they disappear and throw up a white flag, and they're like, sorry!
And even in the moments where it's like real action, which, by the way, I'm going to do a quick tangent. So what's cool about this show is that Saitama is always drawn differently based on the mood of the show. So when he's...
So real quick, that's interesting. I noticed because when he was Saitama with hair, pre-superhero days, he looked like any other animation.
Right.
But in what I thought was an effort... So we say his attitude is bored. He's bored with the whole thing because he's become so strong that no one is of competition.
Right.
I think that they animated him in a way that simplifies his attitude, that he went from having like these incredibly detailed eyes to like circles with a pin dot in it. You know?
And his shirt, his costume always looks not form-fitting, like it's falling off of him.
He looks like Blank Man.
He does. He looks like Blank Man with the belt buckles, like, I can't play with you now. That kind of stuff. And my favorite part is that when they do get to the really cool action scenes with Saitama, he does fill out and he gets all buff and looks like an actual shonen character. So I think just that alone really makes the character Saitama really cool. But what I love about Saitama is like the artist really thought up, if Superman is so powerful and he literally could beat anybody with no problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer, the thrill of being a crime fighter no longer appeases him. What are the worries of a superhero of such caliber?
Right.
He's going to worry about the deals he's able to, because I can't imagine a superhero makes lots of money. So he's like worrying about how much eggs are at the supermarket. Yeah. He's always wondering, making sure he has exact change or mosquitoes.
He makes a huge, there's an entire episode where his prime motivation is he's got to get back because Saturday is the sale day at the supermarket. Because he's BAF, he's broke as beep, like, you know.
And I love his another great theme around this thing is how bored he is with monologues. Like, if you see Saitama, every creature he meets is like, this one character was like, I loved cars so, and you can hear him like listing off what the guy's saying. He's like, I love cars so much. Now I'm Mark II and no one ever beat me. Ha ha ha. All right. Boom! And like punches the guy's face because he's just sick of listening to their monologues.
So when we're first exposed to this, we're introduced to so Kyle and I both watched 6 episodes. So if any of the characters or the relationships change, we're simply talking about the first 6.
Right.
He's introduced to someone who sort of becomes his sidekick. There's a cyborg named Genos. And when we're first introduced to him and Saitama sits across the table and Genos starts telling him his backstory, you can see Saitama getting like physically agitated at how long this guy's monologue is going on. And
he just keeps circling back.
And he's like, he always like through, he goes, "What's wrong with you? 20 seconds or less. 20 seconds or less."
And then I saw and then like you can tell his speech gets faster too. He's like, and then I found the cyborg. The cyborg was really a thing. But then you found me, the hero that saved me, the hero that saved me forever, that encouraged me to be ever. So now you, Saitama, the person I want to, and he's just like, you can see him getting like more and more like annoyed by it. Yeah. And it was really funny because I just love that part of it.
So I want to flex my newfound anime vocabulary.
Sure.
Saitama is the definition in the dictionary next to OP character is Saitama. Now, as Kyle and I have discussed in previous episodes, an OP character is one that you never expect to lose.
Right. Maybe
they will, but 99.99999% of the time they're not, and you don't expect them to.
Right.
There's no way that OP character comes from One Punch, does it?
I think, no, OP means overpowered. So
okay.
It's also, it was taken from gaming, specifically like gaming genre. So if you say like, it's like gamer bro language for like, that character on Overwatch, they're so OP, like their stats are too high, chugging on Mountain Dew and eating Doritos, like that kind of stuff.
Hey.
That translated
easy on the criticism of Mountain Dew and Doritos. A big portion of my life was dedicated to
Gary, if you were a villain, if you ended up becoming a supervillain, I can imagine you'd be like Dorito Man or Zebra Cake Man. It'd be like, I ate so many zebra cakes, I became a zebra cake. And then,
my eyes are yellow like Mountain Dew, and I have cheesy fingers.
It's like, usually call it like gamer fuel, gamer fuel guy, and just see what happens. Having your superpowers to get people super amped about Halo. So you alluded to the second episode, which we'll go into a little bit too. Right. We are introduced to Genos, which is kind of another foil of the show. He is the straight man to Saitama's, funny character, and
I mean, he's a cyborg, right?
It's really funny. What was that?
He's a cyborg.
He's a cyborg. Yes.
Sense of humor was not put into his.
No, it's not programmed into him. And what's crazy about him is that he idolizes Saitama specifically because they fought this mosquito girl who, was giving Genos a hard time. Genos is constantly getting his ass kicked. He's constantly getting broken. Like every episode, every time he fights, he like.
But he's super strong.
But he is super strong, and he really wants to be better. It's just that Saitama is just instantly better. Like the mosquito girl, he walks up and he torches the whole neighborhood, including Saitama, so his clothes are gone. But he's like. And he's just like, oh, mosquitoes are gross, and like knocks the woman simply into the building. It's that kind of humor that I think is really great. Like just to flux back into episode 1, like the guy there was a big man who was wanted to be a super strong muscle man, and a brother who was a really smart scientist. So they were like the brain and brawn, and he was on the guy's shoulder like, together, brother, we'll do it. And then Saitama goes on the other shoulder. And then the guy goes, kill the man on your shoulder, and he accidentally kills the brother on his shoulder, and it's like, like that kind of humor runs throughout this show.
Yeah,
I love it. It's really good. So what do you think about? I think what's really cool about the show as well, on top of the humor, they kind of like lather, rinse, repeat the show, is that Saitama is really powerful, but no one actually knows that he's powerful. Like he thinks instantly, he's like, I've killed all these monsters. How come no one knows who I am? It's because he doesn't know anything about this hero association, doesn't know anything about that. Right. So let's pull on that thread a little bit, because I think it's hysterical that he's like, his motives are very weak at best. Like he says, I'm a superhero for fun.
Exactly. I'm a superhero for fun. But also, like, we say 3 years ago now, 3 years he's been training to become this strong. And when Genos tells him that there's a hero association that actually like gives out payments to its members to like help society, he's like, there's a what now? Like,
and he's like, and when there's like a fan, they say he's a fan club, that's when he's actually like instantly in now.
Right. And Genos is like, well, who would want a fan club? He's like, I want a fan club. And so he's got that insecurity. He wants to be recognized because it's just not fun for him the way it is. He wants to turn it around.
Yeah. So the motives throughout this show are really funny because it's like the world happens and then Saitama happens and they never meet. ever. Like, the world happens, Saitama just happens to float into it. This OP, like, crazy character. And I think that's just a really cool thread that they pull throughout it. It makes it really funny. It makes all these people, like, get really buff and, like, mean and stuff like that. And he just goes, normal punch, and, like, blows up the guy. It just leads to some really freaking funny moments. So it gets pretty lather, rinse, repeat. We're kind of introduced to several villains. We're introduced to several characters, but I really want.
I love when you talk about how this humor is woven in.
Yeah.
Of the first 6 episodes, no moment got me more tickled than in episode 3, The Obsessive Scientist.
Yeah.
So at the end of episode 2, Saitama and Genos beat this armored gorilla. And they basically beat him to tell him, hey, there's a secret society called the House of Evolution, and they're trying to create bad guys and monsters. And they're like, yeah, cool, let's check it out. Like, Saitama's like, hey, this is something to do. So they go find this tower in the woods, and they find this doctor who worked for 70 years to manipulate genetics.
Yeah.
At first, when he first succeeded, after 70 years, he aged himself back. And then he cloned himself
several times, so it doesn't really
but
matter.
then he started really messing with the DNA to try and improve upon human DNA.
Right.
And they find themselves in the basement of this fortress fighting this character called Carnage Kabuto.
Yeah.
And Carnage Kabuto, he's got these heightened senses, and he can tell, like, he gets behind Saitama. He's about to attack him, but he almost has a sixth sense, and he jumps away. He's
like, how did you get so strong? He already knows that Saitama, if he ever got close, death is approaching.
So Carnage Kabuto was like, how are you so strong? Genos is like, sensei, because again,
he wants to be his
disciple. He wants to learn from Saitama. He wants to learn
how to get as strong.
He's like, how are you so strong? And then the doctor comes limping into the room.
Like, now I can hear this. I can hear the secrets of evolution. This thing I've been working my life towards. This man is the perfect epitome of what I've worked my entire life toward.
And he's like, I shouldn't really tell him. I shouldn't tell him because then everyone will know. He's like, but Genos really wants to know, and what harm could it do? And he's like, okay, Genos, do you want to know what I had to do to become this strong?
And him like limping like, yes, master, give me the sweet secret manna of life.
Every day, I did 100 push-ups. Every day, I did 100 sit-ups. Every day, I did 100 squats. And every day, I ran 10 kilometers running. And even when you're tired and you think you can't do it, you have to do those things. And
make sure you always eat 3 meals. Make sure a banana's okay in the beginning, but you always have 3. And like,
Genos loses it. And he's like, that's just a basic fitness routine and not even a hard one. And he's just like, oh, that's all I did, and I lost my hair.
I wish I could tell you there was more I did, but that's all I did, I promise. This show is so funny. I just love it because like that's such a universally funny idea. And it pissed off Kabuto, and Kabuto starts running full speed at him. And then once again, we get the whoop-punch, and he knocks him the heck out. Yeah. And then it's so crazy because I love that it's willing to tell this story in such a way. Mm-hmm. It's always funny. I always get a kick out of it. There's other really good funny moments that I want to talk about on episode 4 to 6. But first, let's take a pause.
Okay.
To appreciate hype. And the hype that I'm talking about is that feeling you get when you're about to watch a shonen anime that's so good that you're just like, man, I can't wait to see the battles and the attacks and the charging up, everything that comes with a shonen anime. How do you get to that hype level? Well, you make the most badass theme song that's ever existed. And One Punch Man is so mighty, it can't require just one person to sing it. They collected every single shonen anime musician to sing this one song. I'm not kidding you. So there's this thing.
Pick up on that. You told me to listen to the song, and I listened to it, and I'm like, this is like heavy metal, awesome stuff. But I didn't pick up on that.
So there is like this like cottage industry in anime called anisong. And anisong, means animation songs, and it's like basically saying like you have to not only be able to like sing these like really like I'm going to get him, I'm going to do it, but you got to be able to hit like those you got to hit those kind of notes. And so there's several like famous so there's all these famous guys that have done it. Like the guy who sang the theme song for One Piece is in this group. It's called the Jam Project, and it consists of 5 famous anti-song artists. Okay. And one of them is like, I gotta say, he's like easily in his mid to late 50s. Like you can see in the music video because he can like barely move. He's like, power, get the power. Like he's like you can hear his arthritis as he's singing. But like it's got Hironobu Kageyama, Masaki Endo, Hiroshi Kita. The best was Hiroshi Kitadani. He's the one who sang the One Piece theme song, which you'll learn. Okay. Kui. There's actually a female singer in it, which you can't really tell because all the guys are like singing over him. And they all
this is like the We Are the World.
This is so, save for there's no Stevie Wonder in the back going like One Punch Man. We are the future. Like none of that. So Gary, so the Jam Project is actually really funny, and one thing that I want to do for you is I want to read to you the lyrics to the theme song, because if you weren't hyped before, I want to know what your thoughts are of these lyrics.
Come at me.
So the beginning is kill shot, I'm here for fun. Fight fair, don't run. What's he saying? Frustration. No one can stop me now. Like, did that not make you feel hyped just by hearing those few lyrics, Garrett?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's so much so that even better ones are, what's happening? Everything's numb. My enemies are gone. Justice enforced with no retort. It is the perfect combination of Japanese kind of being quasi-close to English. It makes me feel like, you know that bit with Family Guy where it was like the guys who have been living in the United States for so long but still are kind of off with it? Like I want 1 and 1/2. Yeah, like I want 1 1/2 pints of beers. Yes, man, I really enjoy seeing all of the ladies. Like it's that kind of thing, and I just mwah, mwah, love it. It's just delicious. It's like, to me that is so awesome.
Yeah,
it's not just so awesome. It's just like I love that. This song, and then when you listen to it, it's just like if like a song could have actual testicles, this song has it, right, Garrett? Like, if there's a reason for there to grow a scrotum and balls out of a song, but it also
sounds like those testicles were then stepped on.
Yes, yeah, like you'd be like power, get the power, I want to be here, like that kind of stuff. That's what we're dealing with this song. I love it, and it got me hyped every time. But I just thought that was like a fun little thing that came with it. Did you? And I told you to listen to. Did you have the same feeling that I did? Like you just felt hyped and ready to?
Absolutely. When they hit that first one punch, you're like, yeah, like let's do this.
And the last note he hits is that like really, it's like, you know, what's it called? Ronnie James Dio level, just like Like
the outro to the episodes didn't do anything for me.
No, and yeah, that's what's crazy about it. You get this like huge hype, and then it's like, you know, it's very soft and quiet. I think it's like
that's what animes do, right? Yeah. Is like they generally have this big amp up song, and then it's this weird, awkward, tinkly on the xylophone type.
I'm so glad you noticed that, and it was one thing as a kid that like I really liked because. I don't know. For me, being a kid, I always had trouble sleeping, and I just love like they always had like these like lullabies at the end of the song, so I could always like actually like watch an anime and go to sleep because of it. Yeah. I don't know. It's good. It like gets my blood pumping, then it puts me. It's like dealing with a cat.
But thank God there wasn't streaming because it would have flipped into the next episode and would have like woken you right back.
Like, it's like, you still watching? I'm like, yeah, I swear I'm still watching. Like it's like a cat. Like, you know, they tell you with a cat you're supposed to play with them to like get really like amped up and then like let them go to sleep and get a meal and then like play with them again. Like that's me. That's what anime did for me as a small child. So. All right. But yeah, so I'm glad you got the chance to listen to it. Anime, you know, you're gonna hear more shonen songs going forward. Jam Project is a really great story. But let's talk more about when we now learn about the Hero Association. We start to learn more about the overarching story. It's less now lather, rinse, repeat of, you know, Saitama stumbles his way into these random stories. He one punches the guy and then leaves, and then you learn his life is really kind of boring and weird. But first we learn of before we do that, I want to talk about the bald guys that didn't want to.
Hammerhead and his crew.
Hammerhead and his crew. Let's give them a very quick look because Hammerhead and his crew, their logic was they did not want to work.
They were hardcore socialists.
Not only were they like socialists, they were like, I want to destroy a building based on the fact that I just don't want to work ever again. Like,
Right.
And they had these, and they all
bionic suits.
They had these bionic suits, and they also all had bald heads.
Mm-hmm.
And so Saitama didn't get into this situation because he was called to it, or like he's a hero. Because once again, no one knows who he is still. But it's because all these guys have bald heads, and it's kind of ruining the bald guy head's name.
Right.
You know?
The news was like, if you see a guy with a bald head, you should evacuate. And he's like, you stole my look.
And he puts on his pajama costume. He's like, I'll get those MFers. Like, that's what he was trying to say. And he goes out, and he doesn't even get to fight them, because then we meet Supersonic, speed of sound
Sonic.
Which these names, the names of these superheroes, I'm gonna look
in a later episode. When
oh my god!
Speed of Sound Sonic comes back, Saitama can't remember his name, and he's like, "What's your name, Chunkamunka?"
Yeah, it's like it's a redundant name, a name that like says it for like, Speedy Quickman, like that kind of stuff.
Even Genos says, "Why is your name so redundant?"
Why is your name so redundant? And he's like the best superhero, the best ninja there is. And he lops off all the heads of all the guys save for Hammerhead. And Saitama beats up Hammerhead as he runs away and like removes his suit. But the best part is that this guy, this supersonic guy, wants to kill Saitama. He wants to assassinate him. He's like, I do everything perfectly. And he goes in, and Saitama non-phased, just like gets. But the way the battle wins is that the ninja accidentally like lands on Saitama's knuckle as he like tries to stop himself from punching. He doesn't want to kill the guy. And you see the perfect form of the wiener go over his knuckle and go like, and the guy's just like, it was like, it doesn't get above dick jokes as much, but it does a really good job. That was another moment that made me laugh.
Saitama One Punch Man is like, oh, sorry, dude, I meant to hold back. I didn't mean to actually get you there.
And then he's like crossing. He's like, I'll get you next time. It's like that humor. It's like fart, boobs, and butts, jokes. Still get me at 35, and this show was able to achieve that.
Right.
So we get to the figure once again. So now we'll go back to the Hero Association. We learn that the world decided that they needed to kind of make an association based.
No, not just the world. I don't know if you picked up on this.
Yeah.
But there was a hint. One billionaire in particular started it. And the reason why this billionaire started it was because, and this is said so under its breath that it's only meant for half the audience to actually hear it. Mm-hmm. But this billionaire's child was saved by an unnamed man in a playground 3 years previous from a crab-like monster.
Oh, I didn't pick up. So you tell me Butt Chin is the
billionaire's kid.
You think so? Oh my God.
No, I know. I know so. I mean, he said that because basically this entire Hero Association is created because of Saitama.
Gary, you just blew my mind. I'm caught up on the manga and I'm caught up on the anime, and I didn't see that. That's wild.
Really?
Yeah, I did not catch on that, man. That's great.
That's in episode 5 or 6. They say, I can't remember who the billionaire's name is, but that's why.
But we get to we get to like an official we get to an actual fully formed organization in which they're going to pay you based on how good you are to be a superhero, and you're going to get little stints. And like what's crazy that Saitama lives in, like, because it's really cheap because monsters are constantly destroying it. Like he lives in City Z, so like no one lives there save for him. And
and I didn't even realize that until they kept referring to it as like Ghost City. And they sent 2 other. I'm jumping ahead. This doesn't ruin anything. But they sent 2 heroes to check out something going on in City Z, and all of a sudden they're like, "Man, this is crap. I can't. No wonder no one lives here." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, that looks like Saitama's apartment."
That's Saitama's apartment. Yeah, he lives there. He lives there not because he's a hero that's like wants to protect City Z. He's doing it because it's like the cheapest rent, and like even though the power and the water hasn't been shut off, so he's good living there still.
So 3 years ago they started this Heroes Association, and they're sort of like a ranking level, right?
Yes.
So there's like C, B, A, and for some reason, S is above A.
Yeah, it's always, in any Japanese video game, know that S is above A. It's like special class.
And within that, so like, for example, I'm going to make up a number. I think there's like 40 A's.
Yes.
So there's 40 A-level heroes, and they're ranked 1 through 40, and your power and prestige, which is based upon not just your victories, but possibly your popularity, is within them. Then there's B's, and then C's, there's like thousands of C's.
Yes, and they're kind
there's
of like...
so many C's that in order to remain a C, you actually have to keep your cred.
Every week you have to fight crime. Every week you have to do like one thing that's heroic. Otherwise they kick you off the roll. And what's crazy is that Saitama ends up becoming a C. And not because he's not powerful, because this is what made me laugh, was the simulation where they had everybody do like a test of how good their physical strength is. Of course, he did like the side step where he goes back and forth really fast. He does like the super punch, which is really funny. He like broke that machine. But my favorite part was the high jump. He jumps so high, his head just goes into the roof, and he's just like dangling by his feet in the ceiling. And they're just like, what do we do with that?
Well, wait a minute. But at least that was a real thing. So imagine it's NFL draft day, right? And you've got mobility, you've got speed, you've got strength with the weight, you've got high jump, which is at draft day, and then the final event was whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, that's right. I forgot there was a whack-a-mole game. And he's like, and you see like the guy holding like the dead mole's head, like robotic mole's head, like, he done murdered me. And the problem is that apparently there's an essay that like literally anybody can pass, and Saitama barely passed it for some reason, and so now he's a C level. So for the guy who is easily the strongest character in the entire show has to start at the bottom, like Drake says. Start from the bottom. Now he's here. And
whereas Genos
got perfect 100.
Right, and so he didn't really have an interest in joining the Hero Association, but he doesn't understand how strong Saitama is. So
and Saitama also, mind you, wants him away. He doesn't want Genos anywhere near him, so he's constantly giving him like trainer babble to make him like go away. He's like, maybe if you decide to go for the thing, he just wants him to leave him alone. He's like, I just totally made that up.
But Saitama says, if you go do this hero thing with me, you can be my disciple.
Yeah.
And so, but a little bit of backstory, and let's not get into it too much because it doesn't seem like it's important to the first 6 episodes so much. But Genos, the cyborg, immediately gets S-class. Like, he leapfrogs everyone. And we find out that the people who run the association have a little more interest in him than your average hero. Probably because he is a cyborg, or probably in 20 episodes or 40 episodes we'll find out some grand backstory. But at the moment, we just know that there's extra interest in him.
Right. And so, and then of course you go through the rookie crushing phase where they just like try to beat up on C's, and this guy like comes in and he's like, whoa, 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 like thinking he's like a snake karate master.
Yeah, yes, his name is actually Snake Bite Snack.
Yeah, Snake Bite Snack. So here's another portion of a show that I think is going to be really important, Garrett. I'm going to list you some of the sillier names that come out of this show.
Okay.
And that is actually on ranker.com for funniest One Punch names. The number 1 is there's a character named Double Hole. He has, in that he uses his superpowered nostrils. There is a character named Horsebone, which you heard about, and he's literally like a dude in a suit with like a horse head, and he covers one of the towns. Then there's a character named Chain and Toad, and he's a karate guy with a gi, and he's got like a kusagari, which is like a chain sickle, but his head is like a frog, so he's Chain and Toad. There's a character you meet early on called Sweet Mask, whose name's Amai Mask, but that means Sweet Mask. There is Armor Chief Clerk, so he's basically like a secretary, like businessman, but he happens to wear like an Iron Man suit of armor, but his top part is a single
he whips his swing line stapler around.
Yeah. And like and also like you meet like Tank Top Tiger, and he has like part of a whole Tank Top crew, which all has Tank Top names to them, and there's like a power associated with the Tank Top.
Or how about was it Spring Mustachio?
Yeah, there's Spring Mustachio next to Golden Ball, which by the way is a testicle joke because his name's Kintama, and Kintama means golden balls, but actually it's what dudes call their testicles. Like those are my Kintamas. Yeah. Like so yeah, you should expect the show is going to have some really stupid names. The characters are going to be really stupid, especially the C-class characters. There's also one named Moomin Rider who's like not really a superhero, he's just like a dude on a bike. And he's just like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to get this kid's balloon. He'll do like the most pedestrian crimes, but he like works so hard at it. Like stuff like that really endears me to this show. So this is the next question I have for you, Garrett.
Okay.
Is this show more of an action show that's got comedy elements to it, or is it a comedy show that's got action elements to it?
Comedy show that has action elements.
You would think so?
Yes, because I think that the
like, would you say this is more close? So I'll give you two shows that you've had some sort of relationship to.
Okay.
Is it closer to One Piece, or is it closer to Haven't You Heard of Sakamoto? That's a tough one, I know, right?
I don't think those are on opposite ends of the spectrum necessarily, but I'll say Sakamoto because there's action, but this is tough.
Right, because one is like a comedy. One is considered unilaterally a comedy,
which is Sakamoto.
The other one is considered an action show, but it does have a little comedy elements, but it's mainly an action show, and that would be One Piece. Even though it's got to.
All right, this is tough.
Yeah.
I think the spirit of the show is closer to Sakamoto, but I think the character, like the lead character in One Piece is Monkey D. Luffy.
Yeah.
And sort of his obliviousness and his being nonplussed and that's more in the spirit of Saitama. That's really, really hard. But I think at its heart, like you actually don't watch it for the shonen buildups because while they exist, the payoff isn't there because he ends it with one punch.
Right. I'm glad you're picking up on that because like the idea of a shonen jump is kind of an underdog story where the hero is kind of punching up walls consistently. Although this could be a great gif for someone as I fist upwards into the air. But that was symbolically someone going up the proverbial metaphorical ceilings, right? Yeah. And it gets a really bad power creep. In fact, most people complain about Bleach, One Piece, and Naruto because of the idea that these guys get too big and then the story gets too big and unwieldy. Like the story doesn't catch up to what the needs of the show are. This show already cuts that out of the equation because Saitama's always going to be good. He's always going to be OP. He's always going to be a character. So you're right. It does cut away some of that shonen element that most people dislike about it. And it doesn't make it overstay its welcome.
Right.
So I'm with you on that. I'm with you on the idea that it's like more of a comedy with action elements to it. But I will say on a counterpoint to it is that the way they draw and put attention to the action pieces is something to behold. If you were to actually look at it, and I'll show you after we're done here, and for those out there, I'll show you like what in manga and anime of set piece of One Piece looks like. I mean, One Punch Man, Jesus. One Punch Man looks like. The level of detail they put into these action scenes makes you think that like that's what they consider more important.
Right.
But at the same time, it's comedy.
I also think that the joke only works because they're dedicated to the action.
Right.
Because he's not trying to be funny.
Right.
He's accidentally funny.
Yeah.
Sakamoto is like, he knows what he's doing.
Right.
Okay. But this guy is just oblivious and he's just a hero trying to have fun, man.
Right. And I think for me, it's tough to get my hands around it because as I said in the beginning, the thesis of this show is that it subverts things so well but it also makes a really good version of it. So eventually what you're going to look forward to, and this is what I'll ask you as like a follow-up to this show is that it does also have really good, like inspiring, like action moments where people beat the elements or beat the odds. And you get those real like, yeah, heck yeah moments that you would get out of a One Piece. But Saitama is the thread that just undoes it all, right? Like it'll be like guy fighting this big monster and he's trying so hard and people can be inspired by him, and then all of a sudden Saitama comes in and he's like, and the whole thing's over, right? It's like,
but then you probably belly laugh.
I so belly laugh every time. So I mean, I just think for me it's really cool that you don't get too much into that idea that it becomes unwatchable at that. So I'll give you that. I think you're right. It does. It's in the service of comedy. It's in the service of telling a good story, less than about the action. So
right.
So now we're going to get to the part of the show where I'm going to ask you, what are some things you're looking forward to now? Because it seems like you want to watch it still. So the first question is, you said early in the beginning, like, you want to keep watching, so I won't ask you that question, but what are some things you want to find out about the show? What are some mysteries and some things you want to unlock about the show?
So I mentioned kind of earlier with Genos, I want to find out his backstory.
Right.
Right now through the first 6 episodes, Saitama is very one-dimensional, and that's fine. And it's probably going to be fine for about a dozen episodes.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm going to be interested in if there's any evolution, or if not an evolution, an effort to keep him fresh. In our last episode, we talked about relying on crutches. For example, with Detective Conan, Case Closed. And we talked about how for 20 seasons, it's kind of been the same thing. Now, people love the formula. Why change the formula?
Right.
I'm going to look for some sort of evolution, because an OP can get boring because, I mean, unless, if you're a kid, an OP doesn't get boring, right? When we were kids, we liked Ultimate Warrior and we liked Hulk.
You know what? Like, we wanted that like 3-second, you want him to like run full speed with the tassels on his arms, shake the ropes, gorilla press the guy, and then like pound his chest and leave. That's what we were
10 years ago, people wanted that from John Cena. Of course, these were all wrestling differences, but also it's one of the, there's an argument to be made that when you're younger, you like Superman, and when you get older, you like Batman.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Because Batman has more flaws, particularly if you follow like the later illustrations, like the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
But just even, he's human, right? Whereas Superman, they literally had to create a single material that is his nemesis, right? So I want to see if Saitama can evolve at all.
So do you mind if I scratch on that a little bit? Because I feel like, for me, what I've noticed with OP characters in some anime, for those out there who like the idea of OP characters, like when we talk about Kakegurui with the OP character, but there's also shows like Hellsing, even Manjitante Nogami Neuro is considered an OP character. There's 2 ways that they try to get around the OP character. The first is to make the stakes around them get too much. So you're not going to beat them, but you're going to beat their circumstance, right? Like you're going to make like their world go up. You're going to make who they are as a person go away. You're not going to beat them physically. You're going to beat the circumstances around them to make the world worse for them now that they can keep living in it. Then the second thing you can do, what One Piece does really well, I'm hoping that you get to watch this more, is they add more characters and Saitama becomes less of an importance. And what's great about what's great about that is, sorry, you finish your point. Go ahead.
No, you start to see that in episode 6 when they send Golden Ball and Mr. Mustachio. You start to see that with this hero association, you can just keep throwing characters at it that are disposable, which allows them to keep it fresh.
Right. And there's threads that you can pull in each one, right? Like they all have their like little quirks. It's kind of like a sports anime in that like they're all like one-dimensional versions. Like Mustachio Man's like a little dandy, and like Golden Ball's like the tough guy with that stuff.
Right.
Or you get a Sweet Mask, who's like the idol. You can pull on those threads and you can really go in any direction with them.
Well, and honestly, I haven't watched it and I don't know, but if you think about just making people sort of his so for example, that Snake Bite Snack, right, is his introductory professor in the Heroes Association, right? So you could probably rattle off like 4 episodes where the focus is just the relationship between him and this guy who can't believe this moron, Saitama, is as great as he is. So like you said, you can pull on all the different strings and you can really stretch it out.
Really, really can. And I think what's crazy about this show is, yes, they introduce more characters, but the thread by which you want, like what you're looking for, it's not like Saitama wants to be the Pirate King. Saitama wants to be the Hokage, the best ninja. He doesn't have like this grand goal. What we hope for him is that he gets recognized, because he always finds himself in situations where he's the most powerful character that no one knows about. Right. And I think that's a really cool thread to pull. So I'm looking forward to you, vicariously through you, as you explore those new that kind of thread. So what are some other mysteries that you hope to get out of this show now that we know that you want to keep watching it?
I'm not really sure. I am, so again, that the Speed of Sound Sonic has already been in 2 episodes.
Right.
So, and both times got beaten down either by the testicles or the other time
he just got straight up smacked down.
He just smacks him out of the sky into the ground. So I'm really eager to see how many times he comes back into the picture to to try and be a bee in Saitama's bonnet.
Right.
Was there anything that I should look forward to?
That's one of the things that I should look. What you should look forward to is that there's never going to be a villain for Saitama, but there's always going to be, because they're going to get one punch. They're just going to get one punched. And what you look forward to is the artwork, because I think now that you've seen like the quirky comedy stuff that they put a lot in the beginning, as they get more to the battle phase of this show, I want you to really just like admire how detailed these things are. And I'll show you like some art pieces. They're insane. The second thing is I want you to appreciate how many different like quirks and combinations of people get shown in the thing. Like there's a horse head guy. There's a guy who turned into a crab. There's a guy who turned into a car. There's a woman who, is a mosquito. Like, I want you to just fall into the ridiculousness of it all.
The one bad guy that had like, she was like this blanked out character where you could just see your teeth in her eyes, and she had this Medusa head of seaweed. And when he comes across her in the street, and she has just annihilated two other heroes, and he looks at her and he's like, "Oh man, I forgot to get like seaweed broth at the store," and he destroys her, and he just boils her hair to make broth.
And then I love it because he's like, "Hey, where'd you get that kombu? It looks really fresh." He's like, "No, blues." Like it's like a very like.
I got it really cheap. I got it really cheap.
Yeah, I got it free. Oh, you stinker! It's like that. That's what it kind of reminds me of. It kind of reminds me of like Kung Fu Hustle. Like it has no problems going into slapstick. It has no problem going into the easy joke, but it's got heart in the process of it. So I really love that portion of it. So the art is a big thing. The ridiculousness of it, like lean into it. Just know that like you're jumping into something. I want the benefit of the doubt to be just like gone. Like I want you to just like suspend disbelief for this show, and you'll be happier for it. The third thing is that like I don't want you to get turned off to fan service. You see a little bit of it. Like I don't know if that like, because I know we also have a tester to see if your wife likes it. But like Mosquito Girl, for example, like she clearly had.
Oh, that was so mild. Whatever.
Right. But I don't want you to be, and then when she got, like, she sucked blood, she was like she was, like, moaning and orgasming. But, like, that's not going to be a central tenet of the show.
Honestly, maybe because you've put so much other crap in
front
of me already.
Created a fan service callus on you.
It doesn't even register on the Richter scale.
That's why I start you at moaning snake girls and boob fishing just to have you provide, like guitar players need a callus. We're developing for you, Gary. I'm developing
so I have a
callus on your fingers.
Callus. Yeah.
So you can play those really hard chords, and then then when fan service flies by your face, you won't even notice. So that's the third thing. Is just like I want you to love the fan service of it. I want you to see the way that it subverts the genres. I think that's what always impressed me was the way it subverts different things. Like it always jokes. It probably makes fun of
it plays in all of them, but dedicates itself to none of them.
Right,
and,
exactly.
And that's a dangerous line to walk because it could be like a big giant mess. But I can tell you through 6 episodes, they're off to a pretty great start for an entertaining show.
And it's really funny. So, Garrett, we're going to be leaning right now into what we always do, which is our Weeb and Noob score.
Okay.
Our Weeb and Noob score is generally, for those who are hearing it for the first time, I'm going to repeat it ad nauseum, but basically, the Weeb and Noob score does not signify whether it's good or not. Like, I think we've all defined that this show is good, and you should probably watch it, but the score kind of defines priority with how you should watch this. Whether you're new or an avid fan of the anime, where would you put it in terms of how important it is to watch? A high score, say a 10, is you have to watch it now. It is the Catcher in the Rye of anime, and you should go get it right now and watch it. A lower score doesn't mean that it's bad. It just says that like it's either really hard to watch or really confusing. I don't get it. Like that kind of stuff is really interesting. So that's what we're going to go to is our Weeb's Noob score. But before that, Garrett, barriers to entry. Like I always ask you, was there barriers to entry to the show? Was it like a easy, smooth drink? So you felt like you can easily pick. Anybody could pick. If any random fan came up, they could watch it.
It was a mint julep across my palate on a hot southern Atlanta evening. It was terrific.
Oh, it was such a good show. So for me, I'm going to give this my Weeb score of 9.0. Now, you're probably wondering why I don't give this a higher score, considering I'm praising it so much. But as you and I have said, it has to be a lot to give it perfection. And I feel like shows that we have given 9.5s to have even more depth and do something new. This is new, but it's also still kind of plays on the strings of old stuff. But that's just to say, easy watch. Watch it now. It's on, when I told Garrett, like, you know, Garrett, watch this on any streaming. It's so like well known now that you can watch it on Netflix and on Hulu or on Crunchyroll, or you can watch it. It's like all over the place now because of how ubiquitously famous it got in the like the past 5-6 years. So all this to say is, if you like shonen, if you like action, if you like the idea of the subversive, like kind of ironic comedy that comes with, you know, millennial and Zoomer, you know, humor, you're gonna love this show. It's amazing. So Garrett, what would you give it for its Noob score?
I agree wholeheartedly. I give it a 9. It was an absolute delight. It was funny. It was filled with action. It kept it interesting. I think it would be a terrific, both terrific and terrible, a terrific initial show for someone who wasn't familiar with anime, because it hits on so many funny points, but also there's action. But it might also be terrible because it would set them up for something that there's not a lot of.
No, it's a very unique property, to be quite
right.
frank.
So in that way, it would be bad because someone would watch it and they'd be like, "Well, what else is like this?" And you'd be like, "Funny you ask, absolutely nothing." and so that would be difficult. But in terms of like watching it, I mean, dude, it's like candy. Like just throw it down, pop it's another M&M in your mouth, and keep going. It was funny. It was beautifully drawn, but it took itself seriously enough to know that it needed to sample from all of these, but also pay homage to all of the genres that it was pulling from. So yeah, 9, right there with you.
And if you don't believe Garrett, you can believe there's this really good video online of Bill Burr, who is a comedian who's famous for making fun of Philadelphia for like 12 minutes in Philadelphia. And he's a famous comedian, a guy from Boston. He's a really famous comedian. And like, I've never heard someone who's never seen anime before speak of so effusively about in praise for a specific anime as Bill Burr did. About
he has a bit on One
Punch Man. He goes, "I don't know what this thing is. I watched it. It's amazing. It's like this guy, and he's got that like kind of Boston accent. He's like, this freaking guy. He's just really good at you know, and he just punches the guys all out. And I just don't know, like he like effusively praises this. So like knowing that someone even more newbie than you are, loves this show. I think that just,
and you know, like if anyone out there who knows who Bill Burr is, you would absolutely make the assumption that he would make fun of anime watchers
and anything. His bit is that he's a mean guy.
He's a curmudgeon.
Comedian. He's a curmudgeon, mean guy comedian, and that's his shtick. So, but I think it's definitely worth it, and one that I think everybody should give it a shot to, and it's very accessible. So, knowing that we've successfully gotten Garrett to another good title, I always, ever, and for always will want to hear your thoughts. Was One Punch Man one that shockingly was exceeded your expectations, or was it something that you thought was just your average generic action show? Did it fulfill all your whimsies of meeting comedy, meets action, meets all these things? Did it give you a guffaw like it gave me and Garrett, or was it something that really didn't tickle your fancy? Please let us know in the comments below, because we really want to continue the conversation. Ultimately, as I said for Garrett, as much as we want to expand your library and the different things that you can watch, but this one, not too hard to find. So you can always make sure you check us out on Twitter, as well as Anchor.fm. But before we leave, Garrett, do you have any final thoughts you would love to give before we close out?
I do. Listeners, we've been doing it wrong for centuries. Forget Jack LaLanne. Forget Arnold Schwarzenegger. Tomorrow, I want you to all do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and run 10 kilometers, and you too will be Saitama One Punch strong.
Make sure you eat your banana, and get lots of sleep. And I agree with you guys on that, Garrett. So as we go to our next exercise regimen, we're going to tell you all to have a fantastic week, and take care, everybody.
Take care, guys. Go Punch!
Become an S-Class hero by smashing that subscribe button.
We want you to be the OP fan. Knock us out with your suggestions down below.